All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Justin Martinez, Event and Program Coordinator for TAO, and welcome to today's DASL workshop webinar on delivering actionable insights. We are really excited to have you all with us. A big thank you to CSG Pro for sponsoring our DASL communities. Sponsors like you make our community and events possible. CSG Pro specializes in software and data analytics consulting and has been building modern scalable software and data solutions since 1993 that are hell-bent on your success. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Matt and Leanne to let us get started.
All right, thank you, Justin. Would you go on to the next slide here? Hello. Hello, I'm Matt Mitchell, Data Analytics Manager at Central City Concern and one of your co-chairs.
I'm Leanne Shapiro, Product Manager at Smarsh, another co-chair.
Yeah, so we wanted to kick things off today with some Mentimeter. Do you have that pulled up, Justin? We're here to talk to you about actionable insights. And we figured we wanted to hear from you what that means to you. So Justin's going to be pulling up QR code. So I'm going to get out my phone, give that a scan, invite you to do the same. We'll use this to get the conversation started. So we'll give you just a couple of minutes here, get that scanned, and answer the question, what does it mean to deliver actionable insights? All right, we can see live a few responses popping up here. Info that drives business decisions. Meaningful findings that result from analyzing data. I like to focus on analysis there. Generating superior industry intelligence based on a myriad of data sources. Oh, there you go. The myriad. That feels real. Justin and I were talking about all the different data sources that we have to pull together. Data and reporting is consumable to a point that drives decision making. Processed data sets that prescribe direct, meaningful actions. Cool. Well, one of the things we'll be doing at the end is, well, after this event is over, is we're going to pull together some of these ideas, and we're going to be using Mentimeter a little later on as well, because we want to assemble all the thoughts from this group, and we'll be distributing it back out to you all. And oh wow, a bunch more have come through. Cool. Well, I'm gonna. Oh, there's a bunch there. So the reason we wanted to ask this question is really because I have to admit that when I started my analytics journey, I didn't really understand what actionable insights meant. It kind of sounded like a buzzword to me. I was like, what is this? But I've learned a lot over the last few years, and I imagine that we're all on some version of that journey, from really, just like maybe we've heard this term a few times, to maybe we really understand it in like a deep way, and it's a big part of our work. And the idea here is we're going to share together. So what I actually wanted to do to get things rolling is I took a shot at answering what I think actionable insights are. So I've got a couple of slides I'd like to share. Justin, would you mind flipping back to the slide deck? And so where I wanted to start, if you go on to the data to insights kind of hierarchy, that triangle slide. There we go. And so this is probably a diagram that you've seen before, some version of this. And the idea here is that data is the foundation. These are our raw, unprocessed facts, rows and columns in your database. And we have to take that information and do something with it. We aggregate, we organize, we put it into context to create information. And then the information, then we have to do something with. And we analyze the information and use that to draw conclusions and make decisions. And that's what insights are, at least one way of thinking about it. Would you move to the next slide, Justin? Oh, it looks like we had some transitions in there. One more. There we go. So what we're here to talk about today is kind of the cream of the crop. Not all insights are actionable. What is it that makes insights actionable? And so I ran across an article from Forbes. There's a reference there at the bottom of the slide, and I really liked some of the way they framed this up. So I took that and built on it a little bit. And so to me, actionable insights, they're aligned with business goals and initiatives, with what the business is trying to achieve. Actionable insights are contextualized. So context can come in multiple forms. That can be through benchmarks. That's a pretty common way of providing context. Those can be internal benchmarks by looking at comparing your current sales to the same period last year or to last quarter. They can also be to external benchmarks like industry standards, so you can understand where your business is performing in reference to the broader industry. But context can also come in the form of description, the kind of good qualitative description explaining why an insight is important, how you're situated in the current market. So both quantitative and qualitative information can be used to provide context. Actionable insights are also relevant. So this means they're delivered to the right person at the right time, and I would say also in the right manner. So an example of a counter example is you don't want to try to deliver your insights by email at 4:45 p.m. on a Friday, because that's going to get buried. It doesn't matter how good the content was, it's not going to be relevant if no one looks at it. Actionable insights are also specific. And by that I mean there's enough detail to really explain what's going on, why it's important. I have a mentor who challenges me to anticipate the next 3 questions that the business will ask. And the idea of an actionable insight in that context is I need to come prepared with insights that are prepared to answer all of those questions. It's not just one thing, it's kind of rounding out the picture in a very grounded, specific way. And then lastly, actionable insights are clear. It's apparent why the insight is important. It's clear how it's going to help the business. And really, this is about communication. Because if you have an insight that's aligned, contextualized, relevant, and specific, it's still not going to be actionable if you're not communicating clearly in a way that your audience can understand. So I would say that all 5 of these things are important parts of what makes an insight actionable. So with all that said, the next thing we're going to do is get a little more specific, and I'm going to hand it over to Leanne.
So now that we've had a high-level overview of what it means to deliver actionable insights, we're going to zoom in on an intake form. So you're all here at a leadership and strategy-focused session. Why are we looking at something so tactical? So if you can be strategic with your intake form, you can deliver better outcomes for your business. So by understanding the key components of your business, of your stakeholder, and learning to become a business coach, you can deliver strategic insights and deliver the right outcomes to your business. So the first piece of this is understanding your business. So how does your business make decisions? Are you making these from top down? Are you going bottom up? Is it some combination of those? Do you make decisions quickly, slowly? Is it based on gut feel? Are all of them based on data? Is there a formal process or just kind of case-by-case basis? These are some important things to think about. How does your business make decisions? And then the other piece about your business is, what are the goals of your business? Each business has their own goals. So you might see that in the form of KPIs, your budget, growth metrics, strategic initiatives, and having a good understanding of what your business is trying to accomplish in that quarter and that year, and making sure you're fully connected with that mission. You can move to the next slide. The next piece is understanding your stakeholder. So your stakeholder might come to you with something like, I need a report that shows me the number of cases that were closed in Q1. Okay, so they might have a good idea of who their audience is, what their objective is, what their impact might be, and what they are hoping to deliver. They haven't communicated any of that to you. So it's your job as a business coach to help them drive clarity in each of those pieces. So some things that you need to think about when you're working with your stakeholder are, what are their goals? What are they trying to accomplish? Because while you need to support the needs of the business, you also need to understand what your stakeholder is trying to accomplish. So are they trying to solve a problem? Are they trying to persuade higher level leadership? Are they just trying to understand something in their business? And the next piece is, why is this deliverable important? What action is going to be taken as a result of you doing this analysis and delivering something to the stakeholder? How important is it to the business? The next piece is the audience. Who is this going to be delivered to? Is this going to be put in front of your board of directors? Is it going to be shared with your top level leadership? Or is it just for that stakeholder? They just want to understand something about their business so that they can make the right decisions. All of that helps you understand the right context and providing the right level of information. Typically, the lower level, you're going to provide more detailed information. Higher level, it's going to be more big picture. And then the last piece is, how is this report going to be used? Is it going to be used in the long term or the short term? If it's long term, you've got to think about, what is the cadence that this needs to be reviewed and updated? Are they looking at this monthly or annually? That makes a big difference. And then who's going to maintain the accuracy and integrity of the data that's reflected in this report? I've had people come and say, hi, your report is wrong. Okay, well, let's talk about what's wrong. Do we need to adjust some of our filters because our needs in our business have changed? What does that look like? So really understanding the heart of what your stakeholder is trying to accomplish and making sure that we're producing something that can be maintained in the long term. If you can flip, yep, thank you. So now you have a choice. You can use your form as a tactical tool. You're capturing all of your information from your stakeholders and you're delivering a product that's accurate. Or you can be a strategic thought leader in your organization, and you can use this tool to drive strategy and the right outcomes in your business. So your role as a business coach in your data leader or data strategy role is to guide your stakeholder to ask the right questions and really get clear on what they're trying to accomplish and why and how it's impacting the business, to build adoption with the tools and resources that you provide to your business, to build trust, and to create the right outcomes in your organization. So now we're going to tie all of this together in the form of your own intake form. Matt, you want to talk us through what that's going to look like?
Yeah, so we've described this as a workshop, so we're moving into that portion. And we're going to be divided up into breakout groups, each with a facilitator. And the task is to design as a group, design an intake form. And Justin, would you actually flip to the next slide, please? And the idea here is that we're going to brainstorm together as groups. What are the questions that we really want to be asking in this intake form that will serve, both a tactical purpose and, to Leanne's point, also really help you as a leader, as a data leader, transform your business. So if you're coming at this from the analytics side, this is really about what information does the analytics team need from the business in order to be able to deliver actionable insights? Or if you're coming at this from the operations side, what questions do you wish the analytics team would ask you so that you can get what you need to actually go do your job? And I want to be clear here. We are creating an intake form together, each group, but this is as much about the conversation as it is about the output. We want to hear what you're thinking, why these questions are important, how, maybe there are questions that you already ask every time that you've got some sort of analytics request on your desk. And we want to hear about your experience with that so that we can all learn together. So we've got a couple of prompts here. So how will I know that my work will be actionable? That's the thing we're trying to achieve with this intake form. How will I use my role to drive better decision making? And this is really trying to take the tactical up to the next level. And so our challenge together is to build our own intake form and use it as a window into your business. And so we'll be breaking into breakout groups. We're going to assemble all of the thoughts and ideas from each of the groups, bring those back together, talk about it at the end, and we're going to package all of this up after the event is over and distribute it back out to you. So we're going to try to take about 20 minutes. So come back around 12:10 to see what we've come up with in our groups. Justin, would you break us out? Welcome back, everybody. If you still have Mentimeter pulled up, go ahead and hit the next question button. Otherwise, scan this and get to the next question. And what we want to hear from you, from your breakout groups, are what is the best question from your intake form? And we'll see what comes up and talk about this together.
Justin, just FYI, there's a text limit of 25 characters.
I can fix that.
So even if you can't answer the whole, put the whole question in there, some of the key ideas. All right, got a few coming through. So I see a number of things coming up on the screen here. Would anybody be willing to share, their favorite question and some of why? Show me the blank PowerPoint. I love that.
We talked about timeline. We just talked about this, Matthew, about timeline and whether we should or should not ask that question of when do you need it. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, because sometimes that's very clear. There's a due date. Other times that's a harder question to answer. Maybe priority is a more important question.
Yeah, and Matt, the context on the PowerPoint is it's what is the end result really? And that very quickly teases out, because the slide is part of a broader deck, so that gives you the context on who your audience is. It gives you the context of how it fits into the storyline. It gives you the context of how exactly they think they want to communicate it. You know, it tells you what variables, X, Y, Z, theta, da, 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 that you need to be pulling. You can actually get a lot of interesting info out of a blank PowerPoint, or at least, you know, a framework.
Yeah, I love that. What happens if they don't have that yet? Is that like a useful prompt?
Yeah, that's where you go back and you pull out the napkin and you start sketching axes and spider charts, or you know, or whatever it is that you think is the right way to display this. Because once you know the output, then you can work back to the beginning. At least it works well with management.
Yeah, I love that. Who else has a favorite question?
Another one we talked about in our group was, what corporate goal does this project advance? Because it's really easy to ask your stakeholder a lot of questions, but what question can you ask to make sure that it's actually aligning with the objectives of the business?
You know, one of the questions that came up in our group, not an intake form question, but a discussion point, is really around how do we take this from, I think, Nick, this was your point maybe, how do we take this from just being a simple task, like of taking tickets, to actually transforming it into something more strategic? And I'm curious to hear others' thoughts on that, or whether there's questions that you think really help move us in that direction.
One of the interesting things I thought from my group was, you know, really hitting on the emotional or the EQ part of this, you know, just being curious and being enthusiastic and being able to just ask questions and pry, you know, because you have to be able to, one of the individuals, I think, Eva, you were saying, you know, you need to change and grow through the conversation. You know, you have to be able to react, you know, and kind of assess how the team or the individual you're working with and trying to understand all these questions, right? There are soft skills involved here. It's less robotic and very human.
I also think it depends where you are in the continuum of the intake model and kind of the size and scale of the organization. You know, our breakout group talked a lot about kind of different scales, and if you're in an organization that's really large, you may be more focused on other components of the continuum, right? More concerned about, okay, so where is your data sources, right? And how do we stand them up? Or do you already know what tool you want to use? In an intake model, those can be more pertinent unless you're in a small shop where it's kind of all you use is, say, Power BI. That question isn't relative or relevant in the same way it is when you work in a larger organization that has, you know, 31 different flavors of tools that are out there, and, you know, 1,000 points of light on data sources.
To add to that, thinking about who is your audience and where are they going to consume their information or data from is important too. Because if I don't have a login to Power BI, but I have one to Tableau, maybe I want to see that in Tableau instead, you know?
Yeah, I was actually talking with one of my teammates and my boss today about a prospective project, and we were trying to think through use cases. And for this, anyway, the thing I'm trying to get to here is we were really discussing, like, how is this going to be consumed? Because like we could do something really cool in our business intelligence tool that we think would be awesome, but thinking of the combination of the delivery method and our intended audience, like, how do those things need to line up for this to be of any relevance? So I'm curious, I figure we'll wrap up a little before 12:30 to give you all plenty of time to transition to whatever's next. But I would love to hear if any of you have had any nuggets of wisdom for how to really take the step into thinking strategically when you're dealing with something that's often fundamentally pretty tactical when somebody is asking for information.
I think one of the things we talked about was having a kickoff meeting and actually listening. Instead of just taking ticket to ticket, then you can actually listen to what they're looking for in a big picture, and you understand how that fits in your data strategy. So I think that's really important. There's something else I forget that came up, but oh, the other one was making sure that these intake forms are too onerous, because if they're really big, then people will just walk around them. So like this subtle balance of making sure that they're thinking about the right things without just making them a total bomb and not really part of the process.
We're actually trying to automate our intake process and use some simple AI and bot capabilities to create more of a self-serve model. So as people enter our portal and then start answering questions, they're forced logic questions that lead them to a set of options in a more again, automated way rather than requiring a lot of human glue. And then when we do engage with them, we've, the front end has already helped kind of winnow the herd, and we have a much clearer idea of what the ask is.
That's really cool, because one of the things that came up for us is there's a big difference between my report is broken and I want new information, or I'm working on a high priority project and this is a piece of something that you already know something about. Those are very different sorts of requests, and being able to, I mean, that's just probably the simplest bit of it, being able to drive that further and really get to the key information that's awesome.
One that gets close to the capability of leveraging prior work, right? How many times have people asked the same question with different words, or will get at the same underlying data, and perhaps with a fraction of the effort, serve up an answer that's close enough, right? Or does a lot of legwork. So that's really cool.
I like that.
It also helps with prioritization within the business. If you know what's the most important strategic initiative in your organization, you can make sure that you're prioritizing the data projects that help support those goals.
I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but every once in a while we run into the issue where it's kind of hard to know what the highest priority initiatives are, because maybe there's a lot of them. and asking some of these questions has actually been really useful to us, to help at least understand within the number of possible priorities, figuring out how to fit, how to sequence some of the requests that are coming in, and to be able to identify like, this is really similar to some other request that somebody else is making. We can solve these two together. Because there's always more work coming in than we can possibly handle. Well, we are drawing near to the end. Are there any parting thoughts or questions or ideas that you want to make sure that you have a chance to voice?
So I guess, well, I'll jump in here. One of the things, and we didn't really get to it in our conversation, but I'm looking for tools and methodologies to really make sure that my customer or analytics base of analysts are really thinking broadly in terms of how to apply the emerging technologies against the data sets that we have, to come up with truly new and innovative applications, right? A lot of what I see coming across continue to be traditional kind of BI SQL retrospective reports. I'm really trying to push my business partners to be more innovative, for lack of a better word, in terms of like really starting to look even beyond descriptive analytics to that more prescriptive or forecasting analytics capability versus retrospective. And that's actually one of the hardest pieces for me right now, is people are comfortable in the space they know, and most of what they're trying to do, when you really peel it back, right, they're looking for pretty simple retrospective historical views of what happened. Not a lot of people are really going, let's look forward, let's pull in real-time streaming data, let's use sentiment analysis, let's forecast this thing and really operationalize that. That's the sweet spot for me. I'm not necessarily seeing it to the degree I'd like to, but that's where the winners will be.
And I think that's really cool, taking the expertise that you have and leveraging that to coach the business on the questions that they didn't know that they should be asking. I think that's really cool.
Well, and I think it's simple things. If your organization has an app, for example, you know, are you scraping all the data that you, I mean, not just using the stuff you think you need, but what are the other data elements you're pulling through a whole myriad of sources that you could then be layering into your analytics assessments, into your algos, and actually gaining deeper or more meaningful insights, right? I mean, what's it mean if the person who's using your mobile app on their phone lets their phone run out of power 40% of the time, right? What can you infer from that? What you know, how are you using the geolocation features to be a competitive advantage? What are the times of days or locations your folks are using? That might not be top of mind for an analyst, but if you start to layer those other secondary or tertiary data points on your analytics models, what are you gleaning from those that you might not have seen before? Or if you start to marry those with other data sets that you have, is that not where you get the exponential lift?
I think that's really fabulous, because what I'm hearing you say is that as analytics professionals and leaders, the challenge in front of us is to learn to ask new questions and layer data in new ways to help drive business decisions, sometimes in ways that the business may not even know that they don't know how to ask the question. Right. So we have to ask it for them, or answer a question they haven't yet asked.
And right. No, and to that point, right? And then I'll shut up. I'll go back on mute, I promise. But I mean, just, and I mean this in the most positive sense of the words. But how do you get all Cambridge Analytica on your data? And now Cambridge Analytica is source of evil, ruining democracy. But what they were doing, segmenting populations, pulling in disparate data sets, carving it up, and then boring through it, asking specific questions, was friggin' brilliant. And that's what I see people not doing is layering data and turning it on its side and then boring through it with a new set of questions and getting a different kind of set of information back than the traditional top line. This is what I normally expect to see. And I'm saying that is, to me, what is crazy cool here. Now I'll go on mute.
Well, Alex, I think that you've given us sort of a vision for what we all need to be doing next once we leave here. So I hope that your 12:30 hour is free so that you can go start layering and twisting and boring through a new wave.
Yeah, I wish that were the case. But yeah, it is a little bit of an Orwellian vision. I will grant you that. But let's use Orwellian visions for the sources of good and not evil. Right, Greg?
No, I'm all about the evil, but I guess we'll be good for today.
Well, thank you everybody for participating, for your thoughts, for sharing from your experience. Leanne and Justin and Greg and I are going to take everything that we've heard here today, the notes that we took during our sessions. We're going to compile all of this to share back out with you. If you've not yet joined our community on Mobilize, the online platform, please do. That's where we'll be sharing all this back out. So,
and then stay tuned for another event in August.
Don't miss it.
Thank you.